Hey, Jim Toscano here, and welcome to the Monday night live stream, Filling in the Grooves, which is also the name of my book, shameless plug, Filling in the Grooves, the ultimate guide to drum fills. And so, here we are, another Monday night. We have a great guest tonight. Before I bring in my guest, I want to just give a quick plug to my buddy Scott Kettner with his Essential Pandero Method book, which just came out. He's having a book release this week in New Jersey, which if you go to scottkettner.com, you could find out all about what's going on with that. And he's actually my guest next week on the show. So we'll be talking about all things Pandero and Brazilian drumming and really exciting stuff. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Prologic's Percussion, Offset Pedals, Sabian Cymbals, Black Magic Designs, Vader Sticks for all their support. I really appreciate it. And I used my Offset single pedal this weekend, and it was amazing. So thank you, Dave Cubes from Offset. And also, by the way, the Prologic's practice pad behind me, These guys, yes, very good. And we have a contest running right now for some Vader sticks. So go to my Facebook page, you'll see the contest there. Just hit the link, and you can win 6 pairs of Vader sticks. Very exciting, very exciting. So my guest tonight, I mean, really, he needs no introduction, but the man has played with everybody, and this is the epitome of, for me, legendary drummers, guys that are doing it at such a high level, so versatile. He's played with everybody from Miles Davis to Madonna, and everybody in between. He's a jazz player. He's a pop player. He's funky as hell, and one of my favorite drummers. And actually, when I bring him in, there's a little graphic of a poster from my mother's basement. It's still in my mom's basement of my guest playing timbales. I think it was an LP promo poster, but I'm gonna have to show that to him. It's pretty funny. But my guest tonight, Omar Hakim. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, the Groove Smith. By the way, is that your? Do you have vocals on this that are yours? On this
Yes,
record?
that's actually all me.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
That's me and my friend Cheryl Pepsi Riley, who is a great actress and singer and recording artist. And she came by the studio. We had a blast just, recording grooves. My bass player, Jerry Brooks, and I worked up this track. I want to say Salon Lerner played keyboards on it. And my buddy Abdul Zuri played guitar on it. This is like a record from about 20 or so years ago, I think.
Yeah. But great record, nonetheless.
Fun. We had, records for me are sort of like documenting where I am at the moment.
Yeah.
And that could mean just about anything, since I'm not doing them for like a commercial thing and I kind of do them on my own. Yeah. I just kind of record whatever the heck I want to record and have fun, and put it out,
That's great. I mean, I have to say, I just wanted to mention, like, one of the first times I heard you, and so it was high school for me, discovering you, but Sport and Life, the Weather Report record, and that opening track with, like, the crazy vocal thing.
Yes.
And then you guys kick in, and the percussion and drums are just burning on that. I mean, it's a slow tempo, but just really killing, great groove. And so that was like the first time I think I was tapped into you as sort of a jazz player. And, the beginning of that record, my jaw hits the floor and I'm like, oh my God. I was like, this is amazing. And then I started following you because you were recording with, after that, some GRP artists, and I was kind of following that whole trajectory. And I think that I saw, and I'm going to blank on his last name, which I shouldn't, but Alfonso, sax player, young guy. And he hired you to play on his record.
Actually, he hired me to produce a track for his record.
Oh, you produced on it. Then did you play on it as well? Or was it programmed?
The song, I think it was called Keep It Right There was the name of the track. And it's his label contacted me and they were like, would you do a track for Alfonso? So I wrote this tune for him and we cut it at my studio. I'm probably playing all the instruments on that one.
Alfonso Blackwell.
I haven't seen him in years.
He was my sax player in my fusion group when we were
playing. Is that so?
Yeah. So like, he was a little kid. Like when we kind of found him. We had auditions, and so we had. Do you know Tom Christensen, tenor player?
I don't know Tom.
Yeah, he's a great tenor player. Played with the Vanguard band, and he became our permanent guy after a while. But in the beginning, we had a few different sax players, and Alfonso was one of our first guys. And he was really young, and he was hungry. He just wanted to play. And
that's right.
I have videos somewhere of us playing like sort of outdoor festivals and stuff with him on alto. And
nice.
Yeah. So when I saw his name go by, I was like, oh my God. I was like, check that out. So I called up the keyboard player that was writing and producing at that time, and I said,
yes.
Alfonso had Omar on his record. I didn't know that. So it was cool.
Yeah, it was. We had a fun time. I mean, they said, well, can you, listen to the sax player and see if you can write something. We need something that could be sort of like a single for him.
Oh, cool.
So I came up with this record that everybody really dug the song. I noticed in Billboard he got a really nice review, and
Yeah.
I forget. I think the label was Scotty Brothers Records. It was a long
Okay.
time ago, but
Yeah.
again, he came by the house and we spent about a week on it and
Right.
tracking it, and yeah, it was fun, man. And
Oh
you're
man.
right, talented kid. I worked his face off. I probably drove him a little nutty because I can be a little bit of a taskmaster in the studio with
That's a good
production.
thing, probably. You
I'm
know,
I'm going. I'm trying to make it as great as possible, and but
absolutely.
still balance sort of the fun with the feeling, and but at the same time really go for something special. Sometimes you have to be willing to push yourself a little further than what you might think,
Right.
you know. And I'm hard on myself like that too.
I was
I
gonna
want to.
ask. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm. I will explore, and sometimes I hit the mark, sometimes I don't. But the exploration is always good because at least you get all your ideas out,
Yeah.
and then you can go back and review sort of what you did, which is what I like about working with digital audio
Right.
recorders because I can keep everything. I can create sort of a multiple playlists of takes and
Yeah.
and
So
and go back and review the evolution of learning a song.
right, right. So if you get a new track from somebody, will you go through like sort of record everything and just sketch it, get it playlist like the first take, sketching it out, kind of getting your parts, go back, play, refine,
Oh,
playlist
absolutely.
that, right?
Oh yeah, man. In fact, that's what I'm doing today. I got a track from the bass player Billy Sherwood from Yes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he's doing like a prog um it's like a compilation record, and he's inviting a bunch of friends, and I got this email and he invited me to contribute to a track, and
Nice.
he sent me this really amazing track. So I'm like, okay, I want to really put some time into this, and I've spent about 3 days on it. Like I did a take with one drum set, and I was like, it's not quite the right sound, and I was using um, probably like a reference kit at first. But then Pearl just sent me a maple gum masters kit to check out.
Ooh.
And I don't know if, what you know about it, but it's a really cool kit, and it's kind of a little more like a old school like Gretsch kit from the late '70s, early '80s. It's kind of that big focused tom sound, and
Right, right.
you
So
know
like
me.
thin shells?
Um, Relatively thin shells.
Right.
It's maybe 4 plies of maple and 2 plies of gum.
Right,
I'm
right.
not. I
And
might
then
have that wrong,
like die
but
cast type hoops.
exactly.
Yeah,
And it's
nice.
it's a big sound, man. I was in it,
Yeah.
and it was kind of reminiscent of my old Gretsch kits and old Ludwig kits too. That use that
Cool.
recipe. So yeah, so today I finally like figured the sound out.
Yeah,
Or I
yeah.
should say last night I figured the sound out. So then what I'll do is I'll play it, listen, sleep on it, come back, check the tuning. That's not quite right. Tweak it again, replace some of the mics one more time. Me and my engineer.
Yeah.
This is and for me, recording drums is always a collaboration between me and an engineer. I can do it myself, but recording drums is very dynamic, and so it's nice to have somebody sort of hawking the
Yeah.
levels because as a drummer warms up, you start playing harder, and then things start going into the red. And if you're trying to optimize the levels, so I like to work with an engineer when I'm recording live drums.
Yeah, yeah. The one
Yeah,
thing when I'm recording from home doing remote tracks, I don't have
yeah,
that give and take because I don't have somebody that I work with here. But
yes.
recently I was recording in an artist that I work for in his studio, and I don't know if you know Justin Guip. He's a drummer for Hot Tuna right now, and
Oh, cool.
he plays with Larry Campbell. Larry Campbell produced the record, but he's a drummer and an engineer. So
Ah,
he was coming up with great ideas, and it's so nice to have that, like you said, collaborative kind of
Yeah.
energy with somebody. So yeah,
Well, no question about it. But it is a blessing though that we can, even without an engineer, get some pretty amazing recordings these days alone in our home studios. It's like
yeah,
it's remarkable where, home recording gear is and the results that you get. I mean, it's fantastic,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
Your place looks really killer, by the way.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
kind of
Thank you.
oogling at your setup before. All digital board, right? Um,
Yeah.
Nice. And using Pro Tools. Um,
Yes.
we the studio I was recording in this past week. It's an SSL board with a tape link going to a
Nice.
2-inch Sony tape machine.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's pretty bananas, but it doesn't always work. So you gotta be
Yeah.
careful.
Yeah. So he syncs up the hard disk tracks along with tape.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
That's
pretty
fun,
wild. I
man.
mean, it does warm it up. Kind of gives
Oh
it
yeah.
that
No,
old
tape
school feel.
tape compression is a thing, man.
Yeah, yeah, for real. Instead of the
Yeah.
plugins, right? I got that
Yeah.
slate
Yeah.
audio tape. You know. So I wanted to kind of get into your story and go back to the beginning.
Okay.
By the way, I'm gonna show everybody real quick this poster. I'm just
Okay.
gonna overlay it. It's probably gonna land on your face. Sorry, but
Okay.
here's that poster. Oh, it's not. So it must be an LP poster. You're playing brass timbales with a cowbell and a jam block, a red jam block, and you're in a red T-shirt. This is definitely. Oh no! Did you freeze? Oh no! Omar, come back! Oh no! Omar's frozen potentially. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe not. He might be back. Oh man! All right, I'm gonna do this. Let me go to here, and we'll see what happens with Omar. So his image froze as you saw, and we're not hearing him right now. Oh, he's coming back. There he is. All right, and he's back.
Okay. So I didn't see that poster, but I think I know the one.
Yeah, yeah. So it was LP brass timbales,
Yep.
cowbell, red jam block, red like sleeveless shirt, long
And hair.
hair down,
Hair. I had hair.
and a beard, and a beard. Yeah, yeah. So
That's right.
that poster is in my mom's basement. It's really funny because I had Weckl on recently, and I had a poster of him from my mom's
Yeah.
basement. He had the real early mullet and sort of
Oh
parachute
yeah.
pants going on. And I was like,
Awesome.
I
Yeah.
go, Dave, I go, look how cute you look in this poster. And he's like, he goes, you mean I'm not cute anymore? I was like, don't worry, you're still cute. It's okay.
Oh, hilarious.
Oh my God.
Uh,
So, man, you played in your dad's band at a very, very young age.
I
And
did.
I have a graphic of that that I'm going to overlay
Okay.
on your face. I hope that's not what made us lose our connection. I mean, it was just a coincidence, I think. But there's
Yeah.
the image.
Wow.
You look so young. Oh, yeah, that is weird. It did freeze your image for a second. So I took it back down. But
Yeah.
you're like 10 years old in that picture, I think, right?
That is true. I joined my dad's band when I was 10. That was my first professional gig.
Now,
I,
that,
st- I started playing a few years before that.
okay.
But then he was like, "You're ready. You're in the band.
That's it.
Rehearsals after school."
Yeah, yeah. Well, like, so you started as like pretty much a toddler. Like at 5 years old, you were playing. Like
Yeah, I
already-
was like 5 or 6 years old. I started exactly, and then he got me my first like real snare drum when I was like maybe 8 years old. I still have that drum, by the
You
way.
do, wait, what is the
Lovely.
drum? Because that's one of my questions always. But what's the drum?
It's a black lacquer Ludwig 5x14 snare
Wow.
around like 1967.
And you still have it.
I still have it. It's close to my heart, man.
Does it have
It's
like the
my
Keystone? It's a Keystone badge, right?
exactly right.
Oh wow. Very
Yeah,
cool.
exactly. Speaking of Keystone badge, I found a Keystone badge kit that I'm getting ready to pick up from like around 66, 67.
Wow.
The guy selling around here. I was like, ooh, just brings back childhood memories of getting the Ludwig catalog in the mail, and it was just like, I don't know if you remember that juicy Ludwig catalog from
Yeah.
late 60s and early 70s. It was like, I was the starry-eyed kid, looking at that catalog freaking out, man. With
There'd
all
always
the...
be like the Octopus kit, like in the middle
Yes.
somewhere, and you'd be like,
Yeah, exactly. It's just
"You want that?"
incredible, man.
Yeah, yeah. Like, wow, I need 4 concert toms plus 4 regular toms plus 3 fill
Exactly.
toms.
2 bass drums and 17 cymbals and
It's great is Hal Blaine played on that like for everything, whether he needed it or not.
yeah.
He could just be playing hat, kick, and snare, and he'd have 8 tom toms.
Yeah. Because it's all about the look.
Yeah, baby. It's funny.
I saw a great video actually of Bonham, Madison Square Garden, playing a wide open Ludwig kit
Oh, cool.
from that time period, and it was like really fun to hear that thunder
Wow.
at the Garden. I'll send you the link to that. I have to go back through my sort of history of YouTube, but I stumbled on this incredible video. It was like, wow, listen to those drums, man, and you could tell they weren't really muted down,
Well,
it was like it was wide open,
Yeah.
with that giant tom right in the front and the 24-inch kick, and
which he kind of tuned high, for those sizes.
it's true. But it's funny. I always tell people, like everybody thinks that to get the drums to sound big, you have to tune them low,
Yeah.
to get that like, but what they don't realize is that by putting some tension on those drum heads and getting them to vibrate properly, by the time you put the mic on them, the mic adds what's called proximity effect as it gets closer to the drum, and it puts the low end back.
Oh, wow.
So the illusion of big actually comes from the slightly higher tuned drums, so all of these guys that have this big sound, if you go back and analyze like their tuning, like Stuart Copeland and
Yeah.
Bonham and somebody like Lenny White from Return to Forever,
Yeah.
the drums are always tuned a little higher than you think,
Yeah.
but
yeah.
they sound huge when they're mic'd up.
Oh, indeed. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's weird because, like I said, there's this little thing called proximity effect from a dynamic microphone that just adds that punch and that oomph right back.
Wow. I need to like get you on a session and just pick your brain about recording techniques. I just had Lenny on the show recently, and
Oh, nice.
and I kind of invited myself, but I told him I want to come out to see his studio in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And check things out, man, because I just want to hear what he's got going on over there, and he's doing a lot of writing and these interesting percussion ensemble pieces that he's writing and all this stuff.
He's a brilliant composer, producer. I've known Lenny since I was a young kid.
Oh, wow.
And we grew up in the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
He's a few years older than me. But I remember walking down the street. I had an aunt and uncle who lived in the Springfield Gardens area of Queens. And I was walking down the street with a friend of mine who's a great bass player named Barry Johnson, who actually ended up in one of Lenny White's bands. But this is before, he was in like several years before. And we hear this drummer like tearing it up in the basement. And I said to Barry, who's that, man? Like, that's amazing. And he goes, oh, man, that dude, his name is Lenny White. He plays for a band called Azteca.
Oh, wow.
Remember Azteca?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
And he also was kind of schooling me on him. Yeah, he played with Freddie Hubbard. And I was like, wow, man, listen to that dude's practicing,
Yeah.
And we were little, listening to this drummer. And so years later, I ended up connecting him through other people in our neighborhood. A guy named Weldon Irvine was a pianist, and he was sort of a mentor to like a lot of the young kids in the hood, like Tom Brown, the trumpet player, Marcus Miller, the bass player, and myself, Don Blackman. There was a whole crew in Jamaica, Queens that kind of came up with Weldon Irvine and Lenny White. And so I have a lot of fond memories of running into Lenny, seeing Return to Forever right at the moment Hymn of the Seventh Galaxy came out.
Oh, my God.
It's like a lot of memories. In fact, I was in a band that opened for them, in some gigs as the band was ramping up. And to hear Return to Forever with Lenny and Billy Connors and
In person.
Stanley Clark
Oh my
And
God.
Chick in person was just phenomenal to hear that music live.
Yeah. Oh my
You know,
God.
it was, and Lenny was just like killing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's something else. He's one of my heroes.
He's amazing. And he's a
Yeah.
lefty.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
I'm a lefty on a lefty kit, but
Ah,
he's a lefty on a righty kit. But it
exactly.
still counts. It still counts.
I mean, that's crazy, man. That whole, I think that's Billy Cobham too. He's
That's
a
Billy too.
lefty on a, but he puts the right symbol on the left though.
Right.
Like Lenny does that too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's a right-handed kit, but the right is on the left.
Yeah, indeed. And
Yeah, it's
Simon,
awesome.
same thing. Simon does the same thing.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah, yeah. He's doing the show in August. I can't wait to pick his brain about some things.
Oh,
But it's
such a
like,
fan.
man, they're all so like prolific and with such interesting voices. But you have your own individual voice that's like unbelievable. And I think, we were talking about this recently. Actually had lunch with Dom Famularo and Billy Cobham recently, and Joe Bergamini and Mike Sorrentino, a bunch of drummers. We had a hang, and
Nice.
was talking to Billy about that thing about carving your own voice. And
Mm.
he's also, by the way, from like Queens.
Oh yeah.
All you amazing drummers growing up in Queens. What the heck?
It's really weird, man. I mean, it's true. There's something in the water.
Yeah. And all you guys played with Miles.
That's true. How about that?
How insane. You're all from Queens, all play with Miles. Oh man,
Right.
there's something in the water in Queens, man.
That's right. Marcus Miller from
And
Queens
Marcus.
produced the last few Miles Davis records.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's true. It's an interesting connect that I didn't think about.
Yeah. And
You know,
listening to you playing on that stuff and bringing, like modern groove stuff, in a different way to his stuff. That must have been a really interesting working environment. Were you guys betting tracks before, or was it happening like on the spot live with that stuff?
it was totally happening on the spot live. Marcus would
Wow.
walk in with the compositions ready to go. He and I had been playing together for so long that we already had sort of a chemistry and a sort of connection that would allow us to get into the studio
Yeah.
and connect the groove and the composition and frame everything pretty quickly.
Right.
And that's, I guess that's the exercise of being a session player. You start to understand how to look at a composition and immediately start putting or I should say imagining what the frame should be.
Right.
It's like, the songwriter's the painter, but sometimes if you get a great framer, they can set that painting in a way where it brings out the painting even more. So I sort of look at my role as like a framer, you know,
Oh yeah, yeah.
a rhythmic framer, if you will, So, and it's interesting because then you learn how to listen in a way and sort of do an analysis of the form, the mood, what the artist is trying to say, if it's a singer, what the lyrics are. There's so many ways to do an analysis of what's going on.
Yeah.
I've even had singers like I could see that they were uncomfortable, and then I would always take a moment and go, "Why don't you just play? I want to hear where the tempo is naturally for you."
Right, right.
And that's really revealing, because if they're nervous in the studio, but then they do it from where they are,
Right.
then it's like, okay, if you're listening carefully, they're giving you everything. They're giving you the mood, they're giving you the intention, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so, it's important to allow yourself to, um, kind of adopt the concepts of others, in
Yeah,
that
yeah.
way. It's a really interesting exercise
And
that we have to do.
yeah, I think like you said, the singer, like especially working with vocalists, they'll reveal everything, right? And so
Oh,
like if it's a singer songwriter type, which I do a lot of that stuff,
yeah.
if you just let them play their acoustic guitar and sing the track, it's going to set itself right where it needs to be.
It's all there, man.
Yeah. And maybe the producer will say, let's push that about 2 BPM to, just
Yeah, yeah,
whatever. But at least you get that starting point right and they get in their comfort zone.
yeah,
Because I'm not a singer, but I know that if the tempo's wrong, the lyrics may not flow correctly, obviously. Right?
exactly.
And so lyrically, it's got to be happening where they can feel a phrase without feeling rushed or dragging the phrase.
It's a whole different art form to recording instrumental music.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a whole different art form.
Yeah, you have a
it's
different freedom with that.
yeah,
And
yeah.
different, you can kind of experimentate, with experimentate. Is that a word? With
It is today.
it is today. Yes. But you can try, different tempos, with a head, even though maybe it feels right in a certain place, but you could experiment with that or the feel.
Yeah.
But with a vocalist, it's definitely a more personal, right?
Oh
choice,
yeah,
so.
yeah. It's so cool, man.
So by playing with your dad, you met. We're going all the way back again.
That's cool.
You met you were able to meet Elvin Jones and Art Blakey, and then
Oh yeah.
and then after that, because of your dad and his, because he had a tenure with folks that are playing in the Basie band, right?
Exactly. My dad left home as a kid. He grew up in Birmingham, Alabama, and he left home at age 16 with the Louis Armstrong Big Band.
Wow.
The story goes that Louis arrived in Birmingham. Trombonist got sick, like really sick for whatever reason. They needed somebody. My dad had his horn. He jumped on stage, read the charts down,
Oh my
and Louis
God.
is like, "You're in." His name at the time was Alfonso King. And oddly enough, somebody um, showed me my dad's name in a book. There was like a chronicle of members of the Louis Armstrong Big Band, and there his name was Alfonso King, trombone.
Wow.
And I was like, wow. And he was a youngster when he left Birmingham. But then from there, he also played with Duke Ellington and Jimmy Lunsford before he arrived up north in New York. Um, and of course made friends with people like Miles and the Jones brothers and
Yeah.
Dizzy and Art Blakey and John Coltrane. I have memories of going to Train's house as a kid actually because
Oh my
he
God.
also lived in Queens. They were really close. My mom and dad were close friends with John and Naima, and
That's
I
amazing.
remember going to the house. His daughter would babysit me while they would go, and hang or go to a club. And I remember John answering the door. I didn't know who he was, of course, because I was so young, but I do remember him coming to the door with the sax around his neck. He always had a horn around his neck, you know. And of course, I recognized him from the album cover because we had a copy of My Favorite Things,
Oh, cool.
So I was like, oh, that's John, Big John. My mom said I used to call him Big John.
Oh my
But
God.
yeah, so this neighborhood was incredible because, you know, on one hand, we're visiting Train but I remember driving down Hollis Avenue and seeing Roy Haynes mowing his lawn and the kids out there playing and
Oh
it
my
was
God.
like it was jazz everywhere. I mean, Count Basie did live in St. Albans. James Brown had a house in St. Albans.
It's
It was
amazing.
like a crazy music neighborhood. Jazz cats everywhere. There was an incredible nightclub called the Club Ruby, and it was part of the circuit. There was another club. I'm not remembering the name of it, but I'll just stick with the Club Ruby because, of course, being a kid, my dad would take us to the Sunday jazz brunch,
Right, right.
because it was outdoors, it was in the backyard. And so I kind of remember going to see people like Rahsaan Roland Kirk and uh, McCoy Tyner.
Oh my God.
It was really amazing, you know. And the neighborhood was interesting too because not only was there like a jazz thing happening, but there was also our crew that was really into funk and rock.
Right.
the younger kids, between Motown and rock and all of that, and then of course fusion. So I was getting this steady diet of jazz language, but at the same time growing up with my friends and my cousins, they were listening to Motown and Sly and the Beatles and you know, you know, Led Zeppelin and you know,
Oh my God. That's like the
Earth, Wind
most.
and Fire.
Yeah.
It was like it was a luscious time. I think.
Right. I mean, that's an
It-
amazing education. I almost said education. Education right there, like being at those jazz brunches. I mean, that's invaluable. You know.
well, you know what it is. What you realize is it's one thing to hear people play in a video, but it's another thing to feel them play in the room.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a big difference.
Right.
And it is language, right? So what we're learning and what we're connecting with is language. The interesting thing about the drum set as an instrument is that the drum set, the trap set as an instrument was being developed concurrently as jazz was evolving, if you
Right.
will,
Yeah.
right? So a lot of the language of the drum set by default starts from the early 1900s with swing and all of these different sort of permutations of blues and
Right.
the New Orleans thing and the African music and all of these things that became jazz language and how the drum set sort of morphed right along with that. And then all of a sudden, and people forget that a lot of these beats, these swing beats, these jazz beats, they were the pop music of the time.
Yeah.
It wasn't that it was a separate thing.
Is it
Those swing beats were the pop music.
yeah. It's
And then it eventually morphed into rock and roll.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Is it
And then the jazz language kind of went in a different direction with bebop and all of that. So it was interesting to also see in the 1950s how the instrument morphed into this heavier
yeah.
kind of need for dance music, for the electrification of pop music, you know, and how blues got connected to it. But then it just started. It was louder, and it was a more aggressive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's interesting. So I always say that the language of jazz and rock and roll on a certain level kind of are hand in hand. I mean, even when you look, if you can find interviews of a lot of those drummers that we're talking about, they all talk about their influences from jazz players. They all talk about Buddy Rich, and they all talk about Gene Krupa. They all talk about Max Roach, and they all talk about Philly Joe Jones, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All of those guys, and it's really interesting, and that's same for me. I mean, Buddy Rich, Max Roach, Art Blakey, and then those are the first drummers I remember hearing as a little kid, Elvin Jones.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then I started getting into Tony Williams and then Lenny White and, Greg Rico from Sly.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's weird, man, how all of this language information seeps into your psyche and starts to make up who you are,
Yeah.
you know?
It's
It's
pretty amazing.
beautiful.
Like start drawing lines from the beginnings of the drum set, and then you're mentioning like Gregorico, and I'm thinking of David Garibaldi, and it's like
Oh,
seeing how groove just started to assemble itself like a language developing over time as the drum set was developing. It's pretty
no, this,
amazing.
it is amazing. And, it's funny, Gregorico and Dave Garibaldi, I mean, that West Coast funk, that was totally theirs, man. And there's a guy, actually, that a lot of people don't know about, also from that area. He played for a band called Cold Blood. His name was Sandy McKee. Do you remember Sandy McKee?
No, but I think David mentioned him.
Oh yeah, and I asked David about him because I went. We were somewhere. I went to a gig. I said, Dave, what happened to Sandy McGee? And he freaked out because I knew about Sandy McGee.
Nice.
And I said, well, I said, Dave, listen, man, I used to love this band Cold Blood, and there was a song on a Cold Blood record. Forgot the name of the album, but the song was called Shop Talk.
Okay.
And
I gotta write this
I
down.
think everybody should go and listen to the drum solo, Sandy McKee's drum solo on Shop Talk. It's gonna freaking blow your mind. And you just
Sandy
he
McKee.
was so badass. And so Garibaldi says to me, Omar, you want to hear something really weird about him? He used to play the hi-hat lower than his snare drum.
What?
So,
Was
like
he
most
open?
guys have the hi-hat up and the snare drum, and they play like this. He said Sandy McKee used to play like this,
What?
which sort of explained some of the stuff that happened in Shop Talk, because I was thinking to myself, how do you do that? Like,
Oh wow.
yeah, like check it out. You're gonna love this track, Shop
Oh
Talk
my God.
by Cold Blood.
Oh my
It
God.
is so cool, and it's also he's like an unsung hero of the San Francisco crew.
Like that whole Bay
But
Area funk scene.
that whole Bay Area, but the guys who know, if you say his name, the guys who know go, oh, Sandy McGee, like, whoa, badass, like totally badass.
Oh my
And
God.
so I was always sort of looking, exploring, and I love the American sort of like regional thing that happens all over the country where there's sounds. There's that San Francisco sound, there's a New York sound, there's an Atlanta sound, there's a Miami, Chicago sound, you know what I mean? And it's so fun
Totally.
to explore how the food and the air and the clothes and the culture creates Minneapolis,
Yeah.
and it creates the Miami Sound Machine, and it creates Sly and Cold Blood and Journey, and
Right.
and that, it's so cool. It's a beautiful exploration of the history of American music, and then how that went out to the rest of the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's pretty
It's
amazing.
it's brilliant, man. I mean, we have a beautiful, rich history of all of this stuff converging: the funk, the rock, the jazz.
I, w-
And
I,
I give it all equal respect, honestly.
yeah, yeah, for
You
sure. I
know,
mean, I had Stan Moore was on with Dave Garibaldi and Dave Weckl all together a couple of weeks
another
ago,
guy
right? And
who's like,
Stanton, man, every time I talk to Stanton, he's like, he drops a whole bunch of history on me. But he was talking about on that show, Russell Batiste.
yep,
And man, there's another like guy that has a very particular voice, deep, steeped deep in the whole Nola funk thing. And it's like, it's really interesting. There's so many different voices in that stuff.
don't forget
But the
Ziggy.
common
Don't forget,
thread, and of course
right?
Zig and Clyde and Jabo and like, oh my
Woo!
God. Yeah, yeah.
Oh man, no, it's beautiful, man. It's beautiful, and
So
all of
good.
this stuff, it's part of my reference, where you listen to so much music and you digest all of this stuff. And as a kid, I was learning how to play that music, but what I realized was I don't know that I was playing it entirely right, but my approximation of it became my style,
Right, right.
because I'm a blend of all of that I loved.
Right. Like
You know?
there's a couple Latin records that you played on and that I was listening to and it's distinctly you.
Mm.
So you're catching all the Latin flavor, you're bringing like the rhythms that would work on that but with your own voice. And I think that's a beautiful thing. It's your lens into that stuff. And they obviously didn't hire you to do the record because they're like, "Oh yeah, he plays absolutely authentic Cuban, this or that."
Right,
It's like you
exactly.
brought your thing in and it's like, man, it works, right? So
Oh, what a beautiful opportunity too, because the funny thing about what you're saying, and what my sort of mission was I never wanted to be a typecast as a musician in a particular style. You know, typecast. Everybody knows it. Like an
That's a
actor.
good way to
Well,
put
you
it.
know, he played Batman, so you know he can't do anything else but Batman. I mean, you know,
Right,
he's the
right.
Batman guy. He's the James Bond guy. You know, I didn't want to be the jazz guy or
Yeah.
the funk guy. You know what I mean? For me, my goal was to be a worthy collaborator for whoever wants to make music, and I just wanted the opportunity to participate.
Right, right.
So as a kid, if somebody got my name, because in New York back then, you know, you would get gigs from recommendations. This one would hear you and they'd, oh wow, did you hear about this kid? And then they pass your name along. So, you know, one day somehow my name got passed along to some reggae guys in Brooklyn. And the dude called me and he was like, hey man, can you play reggae? Now, I never played any reggae at all, right? I heard Bob Marley records, of course, and you know, you Black Uhuru, you know, you hear these records, but I never played reggae. But on the phone, yes, I play reggae.
Of course you do.
I got a week to get it together. You know what I mean? Because when you're trying to survive in New York, the answer is yes to everything.
That is correct.
Hang up the phone, do your homework.
Exactly.
You know? So it was beautiful because it forced me, partly because of survival,
Yeah.
and partly because of my curiosity and my desire to grow as a musician,
Right.
to keep widening my palette of reference and color and all of these things.
Right. And so, I mean, this is going to be a little obscure for people, but so that experience of like learning some one drop and learning some reggae stuff, and then you played on that Brothers in Arms record with Dire Straits,
Yeah.
and there's a track on there called Why Worry, which is very long. It's 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And 6 minutes in, you're playing like sort of a ghosty, triplety thing. And I think there's a one drop on that record.
Yes.
It's on that tune. There's like a one drop feel with a bunch of
Yeah,
ghosty stuff.
it's funny because that was a fun session, by the way.
Yeah.
Mark Knopfler is a genius.
Yeah.
Um,
See, people
the
know like the
call,
first 4 songs, right? Which are like the big hits. But then when you
yes,
listen to the deep cuts, they're really interesting, man. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on.
and it's funny because the sessions happened. It was almost like, let me think about this. Their drummer got sick. The engineer on the date was my buddy Neil Dorfsman from the power station. He was part of the
Okay.
power station staff,
Yeah.
and I always loved like the drum sound that Neil would get on me. So if I was ever doing something, I would try to get him. There were a few guys at power station I loved working with. One of them was Scott Litt. One of them was Neil. The Lord Alge brothers were there. Like the staff at the power station at that time was off the chain.
Yeah.
Bob Clearmountain was the chief engineer, and then they had all these badass engineers. But Neil Dorfman was like really super talented, and I got him to record. I got Joe Zawinul to hire him for Weather Report's Procession album.
Okay.
So we flew him to Chicago, and he recorded the Chicago sessions. Actually, no, he recorded the New York sessions too. Now that I think about it. But fast forward to 1984, just come off the road with Weather Report, and he's in Montserrat, calls me, dude, can you come here like right away? The drummer just got flown back to London. He's sick. We need to finish this record. So I was like, yeah, okay, I'm there, you know. I didn't know much about Dire Straits except you hear the hits on the radio,
Right.
but I didn't know deep cuts, right? But when I got there, one of the first things we cut was Money for Nothing. That riff, actually, it was just he and I. He
Oh,
started playing the riff, and it was really fun to just kind of jam with him. But so initially it was just me, him, and the bass player, and we tracked a lot of it. I actually met Sting during that session.
oh wow.
Yeah. But so it was like a week. It was like a few days of jamming. Then there was it was a small break for the holidays, and then I went back again. This is December January of 84, 85. And then I met Sting during that session. And then the Dream of the Blue Turtles project started in February or March.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a really incredible time.
That sounds like an amazing time.
Yeah, it
uh,
was incredible, man. And I was already a police fan, like we talked about Stuart Copeland earlier.
yeah.
I love the police, so to get the opportunity to work with Sting
And the
was
personnel on that is amazing. And
that's right.
yeah, yeah. And
Gareth
also the
Jones.
documentary film that was happening, was that
Yeah.
simultaneously?
Yes, it was. It was Sting had a clever plan to really make a serious sort of break from the police and establish himself as a solo artist.
Right.
And we did a gig in New York, played all the new music, flew to Barbados in March of 85, tracked Dream of the Blue Turtles, came home. Daryl and I did a session in the break for John Schofield during
Yeah.
that time off, called Still Warm. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful record.
That
And
record
then
is amazing.
and then when Daryl and I got done with that record, then we flew to Paris where we filmed the rockumentary,
Yeah.
Bring on the Night.
Yeah.
It's funny they called them a rockumentary, but it was fun, man. It
Yeah.
was fun, and the record was done actually. The documentary makes you think that the record wasn't done yet, but actually we had already finished the record, and we were rehearsing for the tour,
Got it.
and
Got it.
so that basically documented the rehearsals and the first gig.
Oh, cool.
And we also did the video for Set Them Free during that time in Paris. It was really an amazing ride, man.
Yeah.
You know, life changing, you know.
Right. Pivotal
It was
moments, right?
Yeah, life changing, man.
I think we should say hello in the chat real quick.
Oh,
So I'm going to bring up a chat window,
okay.
and there's some folks in here. I was going to mention one of the guys that's hanging in here when I get down to him. But so first up, just people saying hi. Joey Pinto from Staten Island saying hello. Renee Barthen saying hello. Do you know Renee?
I do not, and I apologize
So
if I'm
Renee says,
supposed.
please say hi to Omar from Renee Barthen. I worked at Pearl Drums in the Netherlands for
Oh,
17
of course.
years
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
met
yeah.
you twice.
Of course.
Renee from Pearl Drums. Awesome. Thanks for joining, Renee.
Yes, indeed.
Let's see. Larry Rizzo hanging with us.
Okay.
How's everyone tonight? Omar, what was the most interesting venue that you've ever played?
Oh, wow. There's a few. Two come to mind immediately. On the tour with Weather Report, I think it was the 83, we played in Israel. And there was a venue that archaeologists had basically stumbled on under the sand in a area or a village called Caesarea. I think I'm saying this right. Basically, I'm imagining a dude like walking down the beach and he stumps his toe on like something and starts digging. Anyway, they dug up a whole amphitheater.
Oh my God. So it was below the surface.
It was below the surface,
Oh my God.
and it was sort of a miniature replica, I guess, of the venue in Rome, the Colosseum,
Like the
but it was like
Colosseum.
smaller.
Huh.
And Weather Report played in this venue.
Oh my God. That's amazing.
Yeah, so I hope I'm saying the name of the city right, Caesarea. But when you think about it, it's really Caesarea, right? So,
Right.
all of this was the empire of Caesar, I guess, way back when.
Right.
And I guess, Caesar was like, well, I need another Colosseum when I'm, at my summer place.
Build me another venue.
Build me another one. But anyway, yeah, we played at that venue, so that was really cool. And then there was another venue. I was on tour with Madonna in Brazil, and somebody said, this is the largest football stadium, soccer, if you're American,
Right.
the largest football stadium in the world. And I want to say it held like 150,000 people, and I had
Wow.
never experienced an ocean of 150,000 people at a or a pop show,
Yeah.
it was remarkable. And if they started screaming and cheering, they were louder than the PA system. Like they would drown out the PA system.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
It was really an incredible experience. So yeah, it's amazing this playing around the world for people and getting a chance to experience how people respond and react to music in different places. So beautiful.
And that's a different energy right there.
Well,
I
it's the
mean,
thing
just
that
the place.
it
Yeah.
pulls us all together. It's the language that we all understand, and it keeps us alive, and it
100%.
brightens our lives. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
it's
man.
beautiful.
Anthony Casina saying hi from Mount Kisco, New York. Why are you in Mount
Oh,
Kisco, Tony? Um,
I used to live in Mount Kisco.
oh, he was okay. He said, "Hey, Omar from Mount Kisco, New York, where we first met and where I was
Yeah,
born and raised. Would you
there
please
you
talk
go.
about your current setup in the studio and how differently you're approaching the music scene these days?"
Well, set up in the studio. I'm assuming does he mean gear or drums? I'll do
I think he
both.
means drums. Yeah.
Drums. Okay, so the drum kit is either a Pearl Reference Pure kit. I keep a host of different sizes around so that I'm sort of ready for anything. The kick drums that I use the most are a 20 and a 22.
Nice.
Um, the toms are 10, 12, 13, 14 floor, 16 floor, but then I can switch that around and change heads and tuning, and I can do different things. I talked about the addition of a maple gum kit today to that.
Yeah.
I'm finding that that's really great for rock and roll stuff,
Nice.
hard hitting stuff. Um, Zildjian cymbals still.
For years and
Um,
years and years and years
for
and
many,
years.
many, like since I was a kid, I've been playing Zildjian.
Yeah.
Um, Also, Evans drum heads. I switched over to Evans a few years ago and been loving it. Also, Vic Firth drumsticks, my signature stick. I also like the AJ1 for my V drums, Roland V drums,
Yep.
and other Roland stuff. Am I forgetting anything? And then the recording gear of choice is um, Pro Tools DAW, mic amps by Neve, Manley, API, um,
Yeah, man. APIs
and
are killing.
the yeah, the monitors are Ex Machina or Ex Machina, and also
Yeah.
Focal
Focals are nice, right?
headphones. Huh?
The focals are nice.
They're very nice, and the Ex Machina's Ex Machina, it's a new company with a game-changing approach to monitoring. So between the Focals and the Ex Machina, I have sort of the best of both worlds. And my Ex Machina system is actually an Atmos system.
Oh, cool.
So what you're seeing behind me is like the left, right, and the center channel of Ex Machina, and the Focals like there,
Yeah, yeah.
there.
Oh, sweet.
So yeah, it's interesting. I can get a lot done here. I mean, we've done I've self-recorded all my records at home for the last 25 years. I might occasionally go into a studio if I need something special. Like my newest band project is called Osmosis,
Yeah, I was going to ask you about osmosis.
Ozmosys.
Yeah.
And we have an EP that came out in 2019, right before the pandemic,
Yep.
called Eyes to the Future. So that was actually recorded at Power Station with Frank Filippetti engineering. And then we brought it home, and I did the final mix here and final overdubs, tracked a couple of more songs. So Osmosis right now is getting ready to play Saratoga Jazz Festival in a couple of
Oh,
weeks.
cool.
And then we'll probably play some. We're just kind of developing the new record. It's Rachel Z, my wife, on keys, John Toscano on bass, Chogi Lama on guitar, Kalena Nash on vocals, myself on vocals. It's really been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Um, and what else is happening?
The single is
And then
very cool.
record dates with a lot of different people.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I know you have to get back to recording. I just want to mention that my buddy Brian Dunn is in here. Do you know Brian?
Of course.
So Brian's hanging.
Brian!
And so Brian, he said, wait, where's his? I'm just scanning. And hey, Favicchia, Favicchia is in here. John Favicchia, who's also from Queens originally.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But Brian said that he practiced to the song Kid Logic on Victor Bailey's album 1,000 times.
That's funny.
So
That's Victor. He's another incredible composer, man.
oh yeah,
And he and I used to have so much fun together, man. I mean, Victor would always challenge me too, and he was like, he would force me to play the craziest stuff for him,
nice.
and he would write stuff over it. I mean, he was a genius, that guy. I miss him so much. We lost him a few years ago.
Yeah.
But what a mad genius of the bass. I actually have a few more minutes because the engineer's not back yet from the break. So.
Oh, cool. All right. So we'll say hello to a few more people. Still, Steve Balgoyan up in Colorado saying hello. Ross Amoroso saying hello down in Ohio. Let's
Nice.
see. John Gill up in Oneonta, New York. Omar, are you still at Berkeley? No.
No, I'm not. Actually, I resigned from Berkeley in May of 2019.
Right.
Still quite busy on the road. But it was like the most fun 2 years.
Yeah.
I met so many incredible students. The professors of the percussion department are just freaking geniuses, all of them. And what was amazing about being with them as sort of the chair was that, you know, I knew most of them already. It was like being amongst people that I really loved and admired and respected.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And one of the most fun things was to walk around and check out the classes and how all of the professors had their very special and unique approach for inspiring the kids.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it was just really incredible to see the experience and the love and the dedication of this incredible staff of professors. So it was a beautiful time for me. And Yaron Israel is just doing a beautiful job up there.
Yeah.
So it was fun times and a beautiful experience, you know.
Nice.
Yeah,
And,
man.
and your wife is at the new school
For years.
doing it. Yeah, for years.
For many years. Yeah.
So you have that educator, blood in you. So,
Yeah, it's funny because I love doing it, but I'm still, thank God, very busy with sessions and touring
Yeah.
and different things, and so I do it here and there now,
Right.
but because I'm not only drumming, I'm engineering and producing records. It's really taking up a lot of my time,
Yeah.
So
But that's a beautiful thing as well, connecting with so many
Absolutely.
different artists. So,
oh man, just wonderful,
yeah.
inspiring.
Stacy Keenan saying hello. Jim Royal from Connecticut saying hello. My
Nice.
sister Patricia saying hello. My sister's here. My good friend Joe Elliott from grammar school is here saying hello.
Hello, sir.
Ray
Nice.
Grappone is here. Do you know Ray?
Don't.
Ray Grappone is a great New York drummer. Was very deep in the Broadway scene. And so he was saying, so amazing. Anything with Omar, so warm. Oh, the album So Warm is so excellent. Thanks for your inspiration.
Cool.
Yeah. And it's, as you said, Caesarea, Israel. He played a chorus line there.
Oh wow.
So that's pretty interesting, right? He said he met you briefly on East 11th and Avenue C. All the best to you. New York's like that, man. It's like
Beautiful, man.
my mom's
Yeah.
here too. So
Hi, Mom.
speaking of the poster from the basement, mom put up with my drumming all those years.
Nice.
And my good buddy Rob Glick, who's bass player that I play with, we have an album out, One Block
Nice.
East to Eden, and
Okay.
it's got Bill Ware on vibes on it, and
Oh, yeah.
and Rob Glick on bass, myself, and Russ Palladino on sax,
Oh, what?
So
Nice.
cool. Uh, nice little bunch of people in the chat tonight. I appreciate
Oh,
everybody
that's
popping
lovely,
in.
man. That is so cool.
Did you ever meet Skip Hayden while you were at Berkeley? Is a question from
Of
Ross
course.
Amoroso. Of course, right? So
Of course,
Skip's a
man. Weather
great
Report
guy.
alumni.
Yeah, deep.
Yeah. Oh, and a really sweet guy, man. You know,
Yeah,
like I said, the professors are all geniuses.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And the experience, uh, like, and his class was a fun one to walk into. I used to just walk in and sit in the back and enjoy the classes
nice.
and then check out, what they were doing and some incredible students, man. It was really fun.
Wow. My,
Really, really fun.
my friend
You know.
Sergio Bellotti is a drum teacher at Berkeley.
Of
So you know
course, I know.
Sergio, and
Of course.
he has one of my students from New York up at Berkeley that he's been teaching. So it's really fun to see that transition,
Yes.
and that growth from
Oh
my
yeah.
own students that are going to Berkeley. So it's really cool.
Yeah, Sergio is so cool
He's a
and
sweetheart. He's a lefty.
yes, he is. And we bonded, because Sergio was familiar with my work with Pino Daniele. I spent a few years with Pino before he passed away. Rest in peace, Pino. But I played on Pino's last three records, and I toured. I did a couple of his last tours, Rachel and I, and we had a lot of fun with Pino. And Sergio talked about seeing some of those gigs, and it
Oh
was
wow.
yeah, Pino was something else, man. A great voice and an
Yeah.
incredible writer, and he loved drummers. He loved American drummers too. He hired Gad for things, and it was really to really hear all of the cats that he would use. I think Erskine played on some of his stuff.
Yeah.
But
It's
yeah, Pino's really interesting and unusual artist, very unique artist.
we love artists that love drummers.
Yes,
It's
we do.
Schofield. I mean, if you look at his records, there's just great drummers on every single record, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely, man.
And it's that relationship and that love. I mean, killer rhythm sections in total, but of course, all the drummers are just amazing. Just
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you for the bass player because I ask every drummer this. The bassist drummer relationship, and I know you grew up with Marcus, right? Like as
Yes.
kids, right? And
Oh yeah,
so
I met
there's
Marcus when he was like when we were both 14. I mean, when I first met Marcus, he wasn't even holding a bass. He was a lead singer in a singing group.
oh wow,
I was doing we played a talent show at Rochdale Village Community Center, and I was in the only black rock band in the neighborhood at the time. At first, we were called Charisma, and then the name changed to Jack Sass.
wait, what year was this?
This is 1973,
Wow. So was
and
it sort of like a heavy rock thing, or
yeah, we were like a rock funk band, sort of like Mother's Finest, maybe.
okay,
We would do like rock arrangements of R&B songs,
okay,
and
that's
our guitarist like could play like Jimi Hendrix. His name was Vic Vaughn. He was just like insane, this guitar player.
wow,
Like he was real, and he could sing amazing. And so we did this talent show, but there were all these other kind of local funk bands and bands with horns, and then this singing group comes out, and it's like five kids out front, kind of like doing Jackson 5, Motowny kind of stuff. And there's a kid in the middle dancing and singing his buns off. And I could see we were the same age. So I went up to him after and said, "Hey, man, my name's Omar. And hi, I'm Marcus." We
oh my
became
god,
friends. And this is before I even knew he played the bass. And it's funny because we talked about this recently, and he remembered the whole thing, right? And then somehow we were hanging out, and I went up to his house, and then he had his bass, and eventually, and I didn't know this was happening, but we both ended up going to music and art high school in New York City,
right?
and that's when we really, really bonded. Playing in the jazz band under Justin DeChocho,
Oh wow,
and
yeah,
and
yeah,
also playing in the orchestra and also in the gospel choir. Marcus and I were like the gospel choir rhythm section,
Oh, okay.
you know? And it was like all these funky arrangements of gospel music. But anyway, yeah, Marcus Miller and I really grew up together. But then there were some other bass players in the hood too. Like I mentioned Barry Johnson before, and I jammed a lot with Barry. Um, but I have a connect with a lot of different bass players um, over the years that I just enjoy playing with. People like Mark Egan.
Yeah.
When I first met Mark Egan um, playing with Carly Simon.
Wow. Yeah.
Mike Maneri hired me. He was producing Carly Simon in 1979, 1980. And and Marcus actually got me the gig with Mike Maneri.
Right.
And we were touring behind a guitarist named Katsumi Watanabe.
Yep.
And so after the tour, Mike says, "I hear you can sing and play drums." And I said, "I can." He said, "You play rock?" And I said, "Absolutely." And he said, "Good, because I need a drummer for Carly Simon. You want to do it?" And I was like, "Whoa, yeah, heck yeah, let's do this." So, and then I met Sid McGuinness and uh, Mark Egan, and it was a lot of fun. And I thought it's funny because I've been back in touch with Mark Egan after many years. But of course, Darryl Jones,
Right.
Victor Bailey, um, so so many guys, man. I mean,
You know what's
we had
funny?
Tony Levin at the studio
Oh, yeah.
recently, and he played some tracks for us. We did a trio thing with me, him, and Rachel for a song, and actually he played upright on that.
Oh, did he? Oh, wow.
Yeah, like Tony is ridiculous, man. And actually, I remember doing some sessions with him with Mike Maneri back in the day too. So I've been fortunate that I've had an opportunity to play with a lot of really amazing bass players over the years.
Yeah.
You
Oh
know,
man. Just a off thing. I played with his brother Peter.
and I
Really
mentioned my
great fun.
boy Jerry Brooks already
Yes, you
earlier.
did.
Early on. He's another one. Like he and I, from when we were young, he's and I every time I make a record, a solo record, I always put him on it because we have a telepathy. I don't have to talk much with him. I just let him hear the music, and he just
He just plays the
pulls
right
out his
thing.
face and just plays the right thing. I didn't say, how do you do that? Like he's he's amazing.
You know what
So,
I saw that kind of blew my mind is, back in the early days, you mentioned about collaborating in the '70s, um, when you met Eddie Martinez,
oh yeah,
and then I noticed that I was reading through, and then you mentioned all these gents that you mentioned, including Bob Franceschini,
music and art in high school,
who's another monster, right? Great monster sax player,
incredible.
playing in Dave's band right now, Dave Weckel's band right now, um,
Exactly,
and touring, and of course he played in Victor's band, Victor Wooten, with Dennis
exactly. With
Chambers,
the Chambers.
and he's from my neck of the woods. He's from Staten Island, so I know Bob,
Yeah,
but he's
man.
he's a great player,
Well,
man.
well, Bobby Franceschini and I played behind a guy named Tom Brown in the late '70s. The big Tom Brown had a big hit called Jamaica Funk or Funkin' for Jamaica, New York. It was a huge hit on GRP Records.
Right.
And that early band was like Bernard Wright and Bobby Broom on guitar and Marcus and myself and Franceschini. It was just so much fun. But we went to high school together, so he's part of that music and art crew.
Wow. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, man.
Man, those high school days, it's pretty incredible. I don't think it doesn't seem to be as many opportunities. I hear a lot of these stories, coming out of arts high schools and stuff, and I have students in LaGuardia and some of the arts high schools in New York, and the budgets are not good, and
Mm,
the programs are suffering. Man, it's just like it's unfortunate.
yeah.
But I always tell these kids, I'm like, man, it's what you make of it. It's the school's not gonna make you. You're gonna do it. You got to
Well,
form
there's no
those.
question about it. And, it's like, while everybody's, making 15-second clips of themselves for social media, I'm hoping everybody remembers to get all their friends together in a room
And
and
play.
just feel that, energy of being together.
Yeah.
for hours and hours, and just, what makes the the music is not only what you practice, but it's also what you live,
Yeah.
and a lot of the, like when I think about chemistry, like we were talking about my connection with those bass players. Well, you know, we'd be hanging, man, like a band, the people,
Right.
the music is the hang, and the hang is the music, right? So, if we're talking language, then it's you gotta add the human element to the communication.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, like I said, everybody's alone doing stuff,
Right.
but it's time to get together and do stuff. You know
I
what I mean?
totally
So
agree.
that you feel, the best thing that you could do when you're 14 years old is get your friends together and, get the gear, somehow get it over to somebody's house and just, blow the walls out of your mom's basement for 6 hours a day. That's what we used to do.
It's usually
I'd
the
come up.
drummer's house, right? Because,
Oh,
you
usually
know,
the drummer's house.
yeah, my mom, my mom remembers this. We had PA system amps, everything down in the basement.
Exactly. We'd come upstairs and my mom would be straightening the pictures back on the wall because we'd vibrate the house.
Yeah, man.
But my mom was like, "Hey, I know where y'all are. As long as they're downstairs,
Yeah. So my
I
mom,
don't care how much noise y'all make. I know where you are."
I say this on every show, but I grew up in Flatbush in Brooklyn, and
Right.
my mom would work nights, and so
Yep.
she would sleep on the couch right above the basement where I was practicing,
Yeah.
and I would come up, and she'd be like, she told me later on that she could sleep because she knew I was home practicing. She could hear
We're
me.
home, man.
It's
No,
like
it's
she knew
it's
I
a
was
beautiful.
safe.
Yeah. No, it's a beautiful thing. My mom died during the pandemic. It was
Oh man, I'm so
tough,
sorry.
but she was a lioness, and she loved music. Her and my dad. I mean, they just lived and loved music. My brother's bass player, and it was so much fun. Being in the music vibe in Queens with the family, and
Yeah.
everybody coming by, and my mom cooking. These delicious meals for the kids, and you know it was really a fun thing, man, to have the guys over. So, but yeah, Eddie Martinez, you talked about him.
Yeah.
Why'd you bring him? What made you bring him up? Because he's like another one who's like a genius.
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking at the early days, and I saw that you guys answered an ad in the Village Voice, right?
That's right.
And
That's a story.
yeah, so I mean, and got hired by Patti LaBelle, right?
Yeah, I mean back then, yeah, I mean they used to have a musicians classified. Does
I
is
remember
there
that.
anything? You remember that, right? You can
Yeah,
open up the back of the Village Voice, and there would be like the classifieds.
yeah, and you'd go
Eddie
through
and
and you'd
I,
look for auditions, circle things.
exactly.
Yeah,
So Eddie and I hanging out. We had just come off of a tour, and it was 70, end of 74, early maybe 75, and walking around, grab the Village Voice. At the back, there's an ad that says drummer and guitarist needed for recording and touring act with a phone number.
right.
I was like, yo, that is a juicy ad right there, man. I was like, I was like, recording, touring. Hmm. So Eddie and I, we put a dime in the phone booth, or what, right? Because this was,
Right.
there were no cell phones. You find you have to go to 5 phone booths because the first 4 are broken, and
Exactly.
then you, and then you finally find a working phone booth that didn't smell like urine, and then you made that call. Right? And so we make the call, and the guy on the other end of the line says, "Okay, well, you guys, can you be at Carol Music Studios at 4 o'clock?" And then you look in our watch, and it's like 3:35, and we're like, "Yeah, we can be there." And we jump on the train, and we go down to Carol Music Studio, which was at like 9th Avenue and 40 something Street.
Yep.
And we walk in the room, and I recognized Nona Hendrix first.
Okay.
And then I was like, that's Nona Hendrix. That's Sarah Dash. And then I said to Eddie, I think this is LaBelle. And then Patti LaBelle walked in.
Wow.
And I was like, we are auditioning for LaBelle right now. Like this is crazy.
Woo.
They had a hit, like a huge hit out called Lady Marmalade.
That tune is super funky, by the way.
Oh, holy crap, man.
Yeah,
And I, because the beat was so funky, I knew it because I had been practicing it, right?
yeah. Nice.
So I was like, oh, I'm ready for this audition. I know that song.
He knew the
And
bridge. He knew the whole thing.
and it was funny because they loved us. They hired us on the spot.
Oh my God.
And I was 16 years old. And but I could, Patty was like, "Boy, I can't take you out of school. You're the same age as my son." I was like, "You're Patty LaBelle. You can do whatever you want." I didn't say that. I thought that, but
Yeah.
but then she said, "You know what? Actually, this is going to work out because basically the reason why we're auditioning people is because our tour got extended,
Okay.
and our drummer was already booked on another tour, so he can't do the weekends.
Oh.
But actually, we can use him during the week, and you can play the weekends." So
Wow.
Patty, being a mom of a 16-year, she liked my drumming, and so I was able to get out of school on a Friday, so I'd leave on a Thursday, do Friday, Saturday, and Sundays with them, and be bleary-eyed in school on Monday, in high
Wow.
school or whatever. It was really amazing.
That's
Uh,
amazing. I mean, to hit that at 16. I mean, you already were touring at 15. Like,
yes, yes.
how'd you pull that
So
one off at that
Well,
age?
I was, growing up in that neighborhood with all of those people and those great musicians, and it was almost like because I was obsessed
Yeah.
with drums and listening to records and copying everything, and I had been gigging since I was 10,
Right.
so I was a great mimic of pop records because I used to practice with pop records,
Yeah.
and I would learn the parts. So on one hand, I'm jazzing it up over here with my dad and his people, but I would loved rock and R&B and pop and funk, right? So my first tour wasn't a jazz tour, it was a rock tour. We were opening, actually, we did
For
gigs with Cold
Sly.
Blood. Right, there was Slide, there was Cold Blood, there was Stevie Wonder's wife, Sarita.
Oh wow.
I remember playing the Troubadour in LA, opening for Sarita. We opened for Hall and Oates on some East Coast dates when they were first getting started.
You hear that,
So it
Brian?
was, huh?
I said, you hear that, Brian? I don't know if he's still in the chat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Brian plays with Daryl,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man, that killing it. He's killing it.
Yeah.
I was at that time they had a drummer named Mickey Curry.
Right.
You remember Mickey Curry?
Yes.
Solid, man.
Yeah.
Like it was really fun to watch Mickey go to work every night because he was like super duper solid, and they sounded amazing live.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, I'm 15, like checking all these people out. So you know, I was soaking it all in, and loving music and completely obsessed, and I knew what I wanted to do.
Yeah, man. I have to mention real quick, Sergio was in the chat. So
Sergio!
Sergio said, sending my love, gratitude, and groovitude.
Groovy dude.
He said,
I'm
Omar,
gonna use that.
my number one fave of all times. He said, wow, 1985, Roma with Sting. And he said, a baptism for me. And then he said, please, let's hear one Pino Danelli story, which you told. That's so funny, man. Oh, my God.
Yeah, yeah, man. These are that gig in Rome with Sting though. These are memorable times.
Yeah.
This was a beautiful band. Branford Marsalis on sax, Darryl Jones on bass, Kenny Kirkland on keyboards,
I know. Ridiculous.
Sting on guitar. Great guitar player. Dolette McDonald and Janice Pendarvis singing background vocals. I would sing occasionally too. And I would say that there wasn't a bad night on that tour.
Right.
It was just different every night. Not a bad night. The music was wonderful. To hear Sting's voice every night,
Yeah.
the excitement, him really, going through the journey of being on stage with a whole new vibe and a whole new band and a whole new energy, and his fans going, what the F is going on here? But then at the end of the night, everybody was really loving, what was going on. And then that record went on to become a giant hit for him.
Yeah.
You know, his very first solo record
It's
was a big
amazing.
hit.
Like he's, like you said, he was on this journey himself, right? That
Yeah, yeah.
new creative thing happening, and then taking his fans from the Police sort of along for the ride,
Oh
but
yeah.
then winning them over in the end because great songs, great singing, great delivery, great band, of course.
Mm, mm.
Just all the right ingredients, I think, and the timing was
And
just
it
perfect.
and it it's a brave break that he did and the way he did it, because it's almost like you had all this stuff on the blackboard that was working, and then you took an eraser and you erased it all.
Yeah.
You started again,
That must,
but he's such a brilliant writer.
yeah.
He's a genius storyteller. Um, and he's very thoughtful, but also a great sense of humor. I mean, he's a really interesting guy to spend time with. And so that was, I always say that was a special time,
Yeah.
special time.
Oh my God. I have
Yeah, yeah.
I have some like quick fire questions. Is that
Mm.
cool? Are you still good? You still have a little bit of
Yeah, yeah.
time?
I'm still good. He's not here yet. So.
All right, cool. So because I do have, I have, of course, your history is deep. There's a lot of stuff that I would love to get to, but I also want to ask some quick little questions and just human interest stuff. So like
Okay.
for one, who would be an artist that you've never worked with that you kind of wish you did, or that you would like to work with, that maybe either living or non-living? I mean, we could say, but who would be
That's
somebody?
funny because what it's fun. Well, it's interesting because he just passed away recently, Taylor Hawkins.
Oh yeah,
And I was like a huge Foo Fighters fan,
yeah,
and I fell in love with their music early on, and I loved his drumming, and I was like,
yeah.
I would love to play percussion with him playing,
Wow.
because I did a lot of record dates as a percussionist, and I was like, man, wouldn't that be cool to like jam in the studio with him? So it's a funny thing that happened because when the Wasting Light album came out, Rachel says to me, they're playing at the Garden next week. And I was like, well, damn, the show's sold out. And how? And then I thought about it. I was like, well, if I call Zildjian, John DeChristopher, those guys are Zildjian players. So
Yeah.
maybe John will hook me up. And so John says, I'll send him an email. So he sent Taylor an email. And within a half hour, I get a reply back from Taylor. And he's like, dude, I got you. I love your playing, and you totally got to come see us play. So he got me, Rachel, Jerry Brooks, and my drum tech tickets to the Garden to see them.
Oh my God, that's great.
Right then, so we're hanging out. He was so sweet. He came out after the gig, brought us backstage. It was a freaking zoo at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
Right, it was a zoo, man. So I didn't get a chance to meet everybody. So he says, you should come to the gig tomorrow in Newark, where it'll be less pressure. You should come hang out. I was like, dude, I don't want to like, be that guy and like take up all your time. And then my wife goes, boom! She elbows me. You need to do that, right? So I was like, okay, I'm coming. I'm gonna do it, right? And he said, well, if you come tomorrow, I can introduce you to Dave and everybody else, because Dave wants to meet you, blah, 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 blah. Great. So I end up going to Newark with them on the tour bus, and we had a great talk. And then I became friends with those cats. So
Oh my God.
a couple of years ago, Grohl calls me and says, dude, would you play percussion on our next record? I was
You
like,
manifested that.
so yeah, I'm gonna play percussion on your next record. And the record's called Medicine at Midnight. It's their last studio record that they did. But we had already
Crazy.
been in touch and hanging ever since sort of like 2011, 2012,
Yeah.
whatever. So of course this thing that, just blew my mind when I got the news about Taylor because he was a friend and sweet, and those guys, and we had fun together. And Taylor and I would talk drums and geek out over Queen and Zeppelin and Bowie, and
Oh
they
my
always
God.
wanted to ask me about my work with David.
Yeah.
Um, and it's funny because my last text with him was around New Year's, you know,
Oh man.
just wishing him a happy New Year, and he hit me back, yeah, you too, man. And, and then the night before, Grohl hit me from South America. He said, we're in the van, and we want to know who played bass on Let's Dance because Niall is here. And so we're having this little, he said, you can solve the riddle for us. We're talking about this. And I laughed and I said, yeah, Carmine Rojas, and talked about the session. And he said, yeah, we're going to see Niall, and we wish you were here to jam with us. We're going to drag Niall on stage to do Let's Dance with us. And I said, well, you guys have fun and hit me up when you get home. And then the next night that happened.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so it was really weird. But, talking about a band that I wanted to just be in the studio with because I loved them so much. And, so I got a chance to play percussion with him, and that was really fun for me.
Yeah.
I was also a Prince fan, and I never got a chance to play with Prince, but,
Right.
I loved his music.
Yeah.
Um,
Again,
yeah,
a guy that loved drummers. Great drummers were in all
always
over.
great drummers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always great drummers in that band, man, like over the top. So, yeah, it's really interesting.
Man, we've definitely. I mean, we say this every year probably, but it's like we lost some really amazing artists over the last year, man. Over
Yeah,
the
it's
last year and a
true.
half. I mean, Chick.
Yeah,
Just a year ago, and
yeah, it's
yeah.
too much, man. A dear friend of mine, Bernard Wright, keyboard player, a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, I'm
Uh,
sorry, man.
this has been tough time.
Yeah, yeah. And during COVID, I mean, like I lost my father during COVID. It wasn't due to COVID,
Yeah,
but during that time, right? I just feel like a lot of things went down over the
on
last couple of years. You lost
yeah.
your mother. I mean, it's
It's
like
true. And I
crazy.
mean, even though everything stopped, on a certain level for me, it was kind of bittersweet because if I had been on tour and I had a whole tour booked, I wouldn't have had that quality time with my mom in the end.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I was already kind of dealing with her health issues while I was at Berkeley, and I was going back and forth between Boston and New York to look in on her. And so, that the pandemic, that was sort of a benefit, if you will, of the pandemic. It forced me home. It forced a break. It forced that really amazing quality time with my mom.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's blessings disguised in everything.
Yes, absolutely. And
Yeah.
you gotta un, you know look at that with understanding at the
Yeah.
end of the day, and really appreciate, like Heinz, what they say, it's hindsight is 2020.
Yeah.
You see the what and the why and the reason, sometimes when it's behind you go, oh wow,
Yeah.
it's really good that happened,
Right.
whatever. Yeah.
Because I think people inherently just don't have the ability to just stop.
Oh,
Like, stop,
absolutely.
right?
Absolutely,
Stopping
man.
is
Take a
like,
breath.
so it's,
Yeah.
that was
It's,
probably a good thing for everybody to have that moment of clarity and sort of mindfulness of like just stopping and like, oh,
mm,
I have
yeah.
to figure out the next move, you know?
Absolutely, man. No, it's an interesting thing because we don't always, we're all trying to make it and trying to keep it going and trying to accomplish this and accomplish that. And
Right.
it's true, and sometimes we don't take a moment to take a breath and,
Yeah.
even review what we've already done you know.
Right. Right. Sort of
And
take,
sometimes that's an interesting thing to do is just to kind of have a review and gratefulness session with yourself.
yes.
You know
Yes.
what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Because sometimes we forget.
Yeah. Indeed.
Because you're always sort of chasing, the like Alanis Morissette called them, the invisible dangling carrots. I forgot the name of the record, but that's one of the lyrics, you know.
That's
I
good.
think the song is called Thank You.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like, and she makes reference to the invisible dangling carrots,
Oh my God.
you know.
I didn't notice that lyric. I have to go back and hear that now.
I guess
Um,
I'm always kind of looking at songs that way, and there's always those lines that kind of catch you and grab your heart, you know.
right, right. Oh my
You
God.
know. Yeah, man.
Um, what would be the first record that you ever bought?
That I ever bought.
Yeah,
Hmm. Whoa, that's hard.
I know. That's
Let
a
me think
tough one.
about it. That's because I mean my record collection goes back to like the 70s, right?
Like maybe with your own money, like where you were like, yeah,
My
man,
own money.
I'm gonna go buy this record.
Um, it's funny because I would take my gig money and I would buy like 3 or 4 records at a time,
Yeah.
and I still have a lot of them, believe it or not.
We had this place
Like
called Titus Oaks on Avenue U in Brooklyn.
yeah,
It was an old record store called Titus Oaks. It was, they had used records, they had new records, but
yeah.
it was now it's a bank, but it took up the whole corner, right? It was a really big
Isn't that
store.
amazing back then? Record shops like, and in our neighborhood there was a place at the Jamaica bus terminal called Triborough Records.
Oh, okay.
And I could buy records and regal tip drumsticks at Triborough.
Oh wow, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
They
I
were
wa-
like they had drumsticks cheaper than Sam Ash.
yeah. Isn't it funny?
So
The
I
record stores would have like picks, strings,
drumsticks,
and
string,
drumsticks. Just like
exactly,
a little thing for musicians. Yeah.
exactly. So I'd get my drumsticks and then and I'd buy I'd buy a record.
Man,
So
I would.
I kind of remember like buying like Earth, Wind and Fire records with my own money early
Oh, nice.
on. I remember buying Birds of Fire by Mahavishnu Orchestra.
I remember buying that.
And I still have it. And
Yes.
I remember buying Where Have I Known You Before by Return to Forever,
Yes.
and Hymn of the Seventh Galaxy.
Yeah.
But even before that, I bought Motown records like the Jackson Five's first 2 or 3 records, and the Temptations.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was a record called Cloud Nine. Um, I had a bunch of singles. Um, I kind of remember like getting a record player, and I asked my mom to get me an Aretha Franklin record. There was an Otis. I wanted Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. I
Nice.
wanted Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones. I wanted Hello Goodbye by the Beatles. I wanted um, there was a couple of other records in there. There was a lovely song by an artist named Lulu called um, "To Sir with Love."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Great bass player on that record. I don't know who that is.
Wasn't To Sir
Um,
with Love in the movie with
yep, it was a movie.
yeah, yeah.
So I had the weirdest listening habits because
Sidney
one moment
Poitier.
I'm listening to Miles, and then the next moment I'm listening to Lulu and the
Yeah.
Beatles and the Stones, and I had like my friends would come over, my record collection would confuse them.
Yeah. Me too. Like mine was really, really diverse. Just
Yeah, it was
crazy.
super diverse. It was like, what the hell is Omar listening to now?
Yeah, yeah.
The Mahavishnu Orchestra, like, what is this?
Yeah.
And Earth, Wind and Fire. Actually, it was a friend of mine turned me on to Earth, Wind and Fire. Craig Neal, he's a bass player,
Oh yeah.
and he hands me the Head to the Sky album and said, "You got to listen to this." And so he loaned it to me. I freaked out, and then I went out and bought my own copy of Head to the Sky, and then I started collecting Earth, Wind and Fire albums after that.
Wow.
But Craig turned me on to Earth, Wind and Fire and freaked me out.
Yeah. Such great
And
drum parts, man.
Maurice White.
Yeah.
And Verdine told me that it was Maurice playing drums on the records. He said that Maurice could play the arrangement. He had the whole arrangement in his head.
Wow.
Like he would play, like Get Away. Before he would just play the hits.
Wow.
All of the figures. It's just bass and drums, and he had it all in his head. Verdine said he would play all of that stuff because he was hearing it. You know,
Wow.
yeah, and people forget he was the drummer for the Ramsey Lewis trio in the '60s. He was a
Right.
drummer before he was a singer-songwriter producer. You know,
Right.
and
Oh
it's
man.
funny how a lot of drummers end up really being amazing producers and writers, and there's a lot of them, right? Phil Collins,
Yeah. I
Verdine
think it's
White.
because you're getting so into the nuts and bolts of the music and how it's coming together, and you
Yeah, and
understand.
drummers have the best seat in the house.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
You know,
That's a good
it's
point.
like you're in the middle, of the band, and you're hearing the sort of the mix. That's how
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
always look at it. I hear the arrangement. He's the bass player and the keyboard player. You know,
Yeah, man. Oh, that's funny. The kid Joe Elliott, my friend that I went to elementary school with and junior high, he said he spent a lot of money in Titus Oaks. He remembers the record store. And he said, don't forget about the Record Factory on 86th Street in Bay Ridge. That's right.
oh
There was
wow,
a place called the Record Factory.
the Record Factory.
Yeah.
There was another place in my neighborhood. The Queens guys will remember this. It was called Mr. Ugly's,
Mr.
and it was
Ugly's Records.
it was a record shop, and it was right next to the laundromat. So my mom would, my chore was to do the laundry, but I didn't mind doing the laundry because Mr. Ugly's was a couple of doors down. So I'd put the clothes in the washer, and then I'd go to Mr. Ugly, and he was really cool because he would let me listen to the singles. So if the
Nice.
new, whatever 45 came in, he'd let me know, hey, I just got the new Earth, Wind and Fire. I just got the new,
Wow.
whatever. And then he'd play it for me. So Mr. Ugly's was like a really cool record shop on Linden Boulevard, like around 201st Street and Linden Boulevard, around there somewhere, next to the laundromat. But
Wow.
that, no problem doing the laundry. I'm cool with
That's all right.
that. I'll never complain.
I was talking about like, when we were going to record stores, you would pick up a record, you'd look at the personnel on the back, and
Oh
then you'd
yeah.
go like, oh man, this guy, he played with this guy. And then you're picking up the next record and looking at that and drawing all these lines from one to the other. And
It
then
was incredible.
when you bought a record, it was like an event. Like kids would come over, you'd all sit around, you'd listen to the
Oh
whole
yeah.
thing. It's like, man, now it's like, oh, I downloaded this song. It's just like so.
Yeah.
And we had the
Who's playing
artwork.
on it?
You know,
I don't know
you,
who's
like
playing on it, right?
you mentioned like the guy from Yes. It's like I remember buying those Yes records and just wanting to open it up to look at the artwork. It's like
Exactly.
and be like, oh wow, look at this.
Yeah.
Why there's fish everywhere? Like whatever it was.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um,
Now I remember going to Marcus Miller's house and listening to the Weather Report Black Market album together and just
wow.
getting our minds blown,
Yeah.
and just sitting there, just put it on, turn it over, you're right. It's an event with your friends.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It didn't always go that well. Like I had my dad gave me Take Five, the Brubeck record.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I remember playing Blue Rondo a la Turk for some other kids, and they were like,
What is this?
"What the hell are you listening to?"
Right,
Didn't get it,
exactly. I got that a lot.
Yeah,
What the
yeah.
hell are you listening to?
And I was like, "Man, look how interesting this is! Look how cool this is!" Oh
Yeah.
man,
Imagine Birds of Fire, like, and my friends are like, dude, like, really? Can you put the Temptations back on?
yeah, exactly, exactly. And I got into Zappa at a young age, so I was listening to all the Zappa stuff, and
Right.
that was driving my mother crazy. She was just like, "What are you listening to?" Oh man,
Yeah, it's good stuff, man. Great memories,
days of records.
Days of
Yeah.
records.
Oh man. All right, so I'm
Records.
just gonna do quick fire. Drummers, first reactions. They could be like short answer. You can
Okay.
elaborate if you want, but so I'm just gonna throw some names out. So Jeff Beccaro,
Oh, awesome pocket.
yeah.
Solid. Tasty.
So tasty, right? I always
Freaking
think like what would be happening if some of these guys were still around, It's like,
holy crap, man.
yeah. I mean,
His work with Steely Dan, forget, of course, Toto, but his,
yeah.
I mean,
The Steely Dan stuff, killing.
oh,
Yeah, yeah.
no joke, man. No joke. Isn't he on like Gino Vanelli's early stuff, or is that
I think you're right.
yeah?
Yeah. Um And then, that Los Lobotomies thing that they did later, the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
instrumental thing with Lukather. So he played on the beginnings of that. And then later it was like Carlos Vega, rest in peace, Carlos.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, another one.
And then Simon, Vinny Colaiuta's on one track with the Los Lobotomies thing.
And also on those Gino Vanelli records too.
Yeah, yeah.
That's right.
Speaking of which, Vinny Colaiuta.
Holy crap, man. What can you say about him? He is like a monster, man.
But see,
I
like,
love the records he did with Sting.
yeah.
Those are just brilliant.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that, I feel like you're similar in that you can do it all. Like you've played with, all the pop artists, and you've done the jazz thing, and you've done funk and rock stuff, and it's like, you can do it all. And I feel like he's one of those guys. He can do it all, and it's so convincing, and it feels so great. And then there's the innovation there, all this innovation. I always bring up for Vinny. I always bring up Nick Kershaw, that track "Cowboys and Indians" that he played, which is like this interesting thing in 3. I don't know, but it's. And then you ever hear that thing, that Randy Waldman arrangement, "Gift with Purchase"?
I don't know that. I like the title though.
This big band thing, and there's one break where you just go like, come on, man. Like,
yeah, like, okay.
What?
Roll it back.
Roll it back.
You keep rolling it back, right?
I definitely transcribed that. But yeah, man. But you're definitely, again, the original voice, covering it all, doing so many different things, and continuing to do so many different things, which I love, man. So following your career, you're one of those legends. It's like,
thank you, man.
And everybody's so humble, which blows my mind. Like Billy, same thing. Like Billy's like, he'll say things like, "Oh yeah, I don't really know that." I'm like, "What?" It's like when guys are sort of like downplaying, what they do. But
here's the thing, man. When you're in the music business, when you have dedicated your life to doing something that most people would say to you, "You got a safety net? You got a safety net?" It's like, I'm like, I made the choice early on to remove the safety net.
Yeah.
And to trust the universe and my desire and to honor the gift of the privilege.
Right.
More important word, the privilege of being a musician. So if you're thinking about it like that, it's hard to take it for granted. Right. No, it does not have to be this way. No, you don't have to continue. No, you don't have to have any gigs. No, you know what I mean? Right. The only thing that's keeping me here still is the love for it. I'm on a certain level, I'm still the 12-year-old kid that's obsessed with music and drums. I still get off on getting a new drum set like I was a little kid.
Right.
I feel the same way about music when I fall in love with a band. It's one thing to be a pro, but it's really fun to be a fan of music still.
Yeah, yeah.
And to get inspired by your colleagues and to discover something that ignites that spark in you that made you want to play in the first place. You know what I mean? So I try to hold on to that feeling. I love that feeling.
I love that. I bring that up a lot on the show is when you first got the spark, right? When you first, whatever it was that you saw that made you want to play, and that feeling like the first time touching drums at Chet DeBoe's nephew's house in Long Island, which was what happened for me. They had a Ludwig Vista-like kit. I never hit drums before. I saw those things and that feeling, that rush. And it's
Yeah,
like
it's
I
just
try to hold on
amazing.
to that, right? It's like
Amazing, man. It's amazing, man.
that's
It's,
the
it keeps
stuff.
me going. And and you know, the funny thing is when you talk to the guys, you know, I think everybody's sort of expressing the same kind of passionate, you know,
Yeah,
but I don't take it for granted. Like every day for me is sort of like I am grateful. I am grateful. I am grateful.
right.
You know what I mean? That's all I can say about that. It's
Yeah,
just like I can't believe it. I mean, I get paid to do this.
yeah,
People are still interested, you know, in what I'm doing, and they don't have to be. I try not to ask for anybody's attention if I don't have something worthy to share.
right.
You know what I mean? So this is serious for me, and it's important, you
Yeah,
know, to when you go out there. Like I always say, if I'm on tour, every night's the first night. I don't care if we were playing 120 shows. It might be show number 99, but it's show number one for the audience.
that's right.
So my goal and responsibility is to play that show as if it's the first night. I
Yeah,
can't be up there like, oh, I'm tired. You know, I wish to. No, 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 no. It's their first night. They didn't have to come. They didn't have to spend their hard-earned money on the tickets. They didn't even need to buy your daggone record. So
yeah,
the fact that people honored you and respected you enough to buy that music and to buy a ticket means that I need to go out there with my A game.
yeah,
You know what I mean? That's what I have to do, and that's real. And I think people feel that. I know that when I go to a gig, I can tell
yeah,
when they're phoning it in.
yeah.
I can tell. You can feel it. You know.
It makes you
So
think like, how does anybody get jaded? It's like if you're doing what you love and you bring and you're truly there, you're truly present because you have to be there. You can't be off
yeah,
in.
yeah, and you know, and it does happen. You know,
Yeah,
cats do get jaded, and
yeah,
things happen, and people go through stuff in their life. But that's why I always said you need to have a gratefulness session with yourself.
yeah,
You know, you review things and you go, okay, so how did you get here? And do you remember all the work that it took? And, you know, are you practicing, you know, what you love? And,
right.
you know, sometimes practicing is even just thinking about it,
Yeah,
is staying connected to the creative experience.
right.
You know what I mean? So even if I'm not practicing the drums and I'm holding a guitar or I'm sitting at a keyboard, I'm still practicing music
Right. The practice
and
of the practice.
practicing something.
Yeah.
It's you know, you'll be surprised at the concept of practicing music, how practicing your guitar informs your drumming and practicing the drums informs your keyboard playing. You know, and then you think about somebody like Gary Husband who can play the crap out the drums
Oh
and the
my God.
keyboards. You know, so you know what I mean? Practice, just practice. Just
Yeah.
pick up, stay connected to the process of being creative.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And live. You know, when you have a lovely meal with your wife or your girlfriend or your mate, that informs your music because it's part of your life.
Right.
You know, you can play about that. You can write about that. You know, I always say you need something to play about, you know.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, people always say you need something to write about. Well, you need something to play about too, you know. So how about, you know, don't forget to live and don't forget to enjoy your family and your friends and your, you know, because all of these things become a part of your music and you know and it seeps in,
Yeah.
you know, to how you think about the things. And then, you know, when you see somebody with a t-shirt that says music is life, then you understand what that phrase actually means.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
music is life, you know.
It is.
Life is music, you know. Yeah.
Oh man. By the way, you mentioned Gary Husband. He's another one with that joyful kid like enthusiasm, right? It's
Holy
like,
crap, man.
oh
Yeah,
my
yeah,
God.
yeah,
It's
he's
that love.
something. It's a beautiful thing. It's one of the greatest things human beings do is that music making.
Yeah. You know,
process. You know?
it's funny, man. I feel like, I mean, just as drummers, the community of drummers is so tight. It's a different thing. Like the way we come together and hang and like share.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sharing with drummers. We always make jokes about like guitar players will rather turn their back and not show each other, what they're working
Yeah, yeah,
on.
yeah.
But
Exactly.
drummers are like, hey man, check out what I've been working on. Like we're
You
always
know why?
saying,
I have a theory about that. You know why I think drummers are like that? Because I think we all know what it takes to get to that point.
yeah,
First of all, the drums is a communal instrument.
yes,
It's a communication device in some cultures. So it's already sort of starting off as like a communal kind of experience of people playing rhythm together, right?
yeah,
But I think the respect comes from, when you see somebody working and you go, dude, I know what you had to do, man, and
yeah,
respect. I know what you had to do, and we appreciate it, and I think that's why drummers can sit in a room and appreciate each other because we know, dang, you pull that off.
yeah,
I've been trying to do that for a long time, and it's so much fun. It's like it's a really fun instrument from that standpoint,
yeah, yeah,
and it's funny because there's so many sort of aspects of it. There's groove drumming, there's sports drumming, there's
right,
marching drumming. There's like all these things, and I've had people in interviews go, so what do you think of these? These guys, and they're just trying to play fast. I was like, listen, man, you just got to let people enjoy what they're doing.
right,
There's a lot of different levels of expression here that make the community really interesting.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And you just got to let it rip because it is from these explorations that discoveries happen that sort of move everything forward.
right,
You know what I mean? It's like somebody figures out a way to do a thing. Like Billy Cobham figured out a way to do a thing that nobody did it like that
yeah,
at the time.
right,
Buddy Rich figured out how to do a thing. Nobody did it like that. Tony Williams figured out nobody did it like that.
yeah,
So that's the beauty. And the funny thing about drummers, the other thing is, because the instrument is physical and personal, everybody's thing is like a fingerprint.
yeah.
It's only unique to them.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It,
and it comes from like so many different things, right? It's like
yeah.
just height, body type, lefty, righty,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
open,
But
cross,
weight. You
weight,
know,
yeah, yeah,
my arms are this long. Your arms are that long. It's like
yeah,
it's a fingerprint, man.
yeah,
It's very personal and it's really fun to observe.
yeah, man. That's
You
true.
know.
Really the
Dude,
best,
I'm
man.
gonna have to get back to the session. I hear the rumblings.
All right, man. Well, first of all, thank you for being so generous with your time. I really appreciate it. Connecting with you is really amazing. Of course, I could go on for hours and hours and hours. You have a life to get back to. Actually, my wife is probably going to be happy if I come up and go
I'm
have
sure
tea
she
with her
will.
and we chill. But so great to connect. And man, what do you have coming up? So, Osmosis,
Osmosis, we're playing at the Saratoga Jazz Festival. I don't have the date in front of me. I'm sorry, but it's easily found.
right? By the way,
We're also
your website is in the description of the video. So everybody just go to Omar's website. There's a plethora of information there, but also you can
yeah.
find out what Omar's up to.
Yeah, I'm going to start updating the calendar. Actually, we're doing a little kind of refresh to the site, but it's still up and you can see a few
Yeah.
things there. Yeah, so look for Osmosis. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, man.
Couple of record dates coming up. It's just, so, my usual stuff. Just trying to stay busy. But the main thing is I gotta get this Osmosis record done so that
Yeah,
we
man.
can really hit the road and get our new record out. It's going to be a lot of fun to hit the road. The new band is so cool.
Nice.
And yeah, we're really having a lot of fun. And if you haven't heard it, you could go back and hear the first EP. It's a different band.
Right.
Kurt Rosenwinkel on guitar, Lindley Martha on bass, and me and Rachel. That EP is called Eyes to the Future.
Yeah.
And then the new one will be out soon.
Nice. She won't remember, but tell Rachel that my band Point of View opened for her like probably in the late 80s or early 90s
Oh wow!
in the village somewhere. I forget where it was.
Man.
Might have been Village Gate. I don't remember, but yeah,
Yes,
man.
yes, yes.
So, well, thank you for hanging. Everybody that was in the chat, I appreciate you guys coming and hanging with us. I'm going to roll the titles. I'll see you guys on Monday with Scott Kettner and then Derek Roddy the end of the month. Talk about other types of drumming. Holy moly.
Holy moly.
Good night, everybody.